So cubing in itself is impressive. It's pretty cool to see it happen. If you're watching this video, you probably already solve, or you know me in real life, in which case, hi Mark. But if you solve, you probably impressed someone who is watching you cube, and there are plenty of ways that they react to you. There are plenty of ways that you can react to them, and it's important to give them the right impression and not be a gatekeeper. Don't be a gatekeeper. I've talked before about how every cuber should be a teacher, and that's one of the biggest aspects of our hobby. And non-cubers reacting to you solving is one of the most important opportunities to teach that we have. So say you're on the bus or the subway or sitting in a park or waiting at the DMV or something, and you pull out a cube and start casually solving. It's not out of the question. You're gonna get a reaction from someone, they're gonna respond to you, and they should. It's not every day you see someone solving a Rubik's Cube in public. It's an interesting thing to see happen. People think it's cool. It's important that you react the right way though. This is the only cuber they see maybe for months or years. You may be the only interaction they have with a hobby, and you need to not waste that opportunity. So your interaction with non-cubers carries a lot of weight. At best, they may end up becoming a cuber because of what you say and do, kind of like what happened to me. At worst, they may resent all cubers as elitists and not narcissists, and that's not good. I know a guy who actually lost a date because of cubing. He pulled out a cube and the girl who was about to ask him out was like, "Oh, I was gonna come over and ask you out because you're kind of cute, but I saw that you were one of those, so I decided not to." It's a true story. If you're watching this, I'm sorry about bringing that up again. The point is, your interaction sticks with them and it carries a lot of weight, and you need to make sure that you paint cubing in a good light because that will stick with them for a while. One common question you might get is, how do you do that? How do you even solve that? How do you even go about doing that? And you can't very well tell them, oh, I use Petrus X-Cross into EO and then I use ZBLL. They're not gonna know what that means. You have to boil it down into an abstract idea. And the answer that I usually give is something like, the basic idea is taking something from complete disorder and boiling it down into a situation you know how to handle. It starts off with just putting one piece in place, followed by another, bit by bit, until you know how to solve that and handle that situation. And then eventually it goes from several quintillion possibilities to about 50 to about a dozen. And you can always work with that because you always know where to go next. So you may also be asked how you're so fast. And it's pretty common to hear you say something like, "Oh no, there's this Australian guy who solves in a quarter the time that I do." Don't deprecate yourself. Own yourself. You're impressive to them. Back to the question though, I would say that I got here the same way, that a musician plays so lyrically, that an athlete runs with such endurance, or an artist creates such lifelike creations. They practice. I practice. I've practiced for 2 years. There are people who practice for longer, practice better than I have, and they're better than me, but it's still a skill. It's something that you have to practice just like anything else. So a lot of people ask me how I got into cubing, or how I started, or how I figured it out, or who taught me. That's kind of an interesting story. There was a guy in my pre-calculus class who I saw solving, and I was like, hey, that's pretty neat. I want to do that. So I did it. I talked to him and I got a loaner cube from him to learn on, and he directed me towards the person who taught him, who was named Graham, who's a good friend of mine. And we were both in the band together, Graham and I, so I spent a lot of time learning during pep band games or football games or on the school buses. I learned F2L at a basketball game, I remember. He told me to put away a cube one time when I just wouldn't put it away at a concert that the Army recruiters had at our school. We started our school's cube club together. It was a lot of fun. If you have the opportunity to learn, I definitely recommend you do it with a person who can teach you, because that'll be the best way to do it. And Graham, if you're watching this video, go back to studying. You should probably be doing that instead of watching YouTube. One thing I hear all too often is the whole, I would never be able to do that sentiment. The whole, I couldn't do that in 20 years, but you can do that in 20 seconds. Therefore, you are smarter than me. I'm probably not smarter than you. And no one who cubes, no one who successfully learned how to solve has that whole I can't do it mindset. So yeah, if you think you can't do it, sure, you're never gonna do it. Not at all. But if you actually apply yourself a little bit, certainly you can do it. The worst thing that can happen is you don't learn it. The best thing that can happen if you don't try is you don't learn it though. So then there are the silly or aggravating questions and answers that we always get, like, oh, I knew someone who could get 5 of the 6 sides done. That's actually mathematically impossible, and you're wrong. You can't do that. It's not true. There are the people who are like, oh, I'd solve it by taking off the stickers, or with a flathead screwdriver by taking it apart. Yeah, I know, it sucks, it's annoying, everyone says that, but it's a fact of life. You're probably the first person they're telling that joke to, so let them have it. And people assume that because you solve, you're good at math. My grade in AP Calc is probably gonna bet differently. So the broad point of this all is that you need to be an ambassador for cubing, not an elitist. Don't talk down to someone who doesn't have the same knowledge or experience as you have in a hobby because they don't know yet. It's your job to teach them. You may be the first cuber that the person has ever seen or will see for a long time, you don't know. So it's your job, your responsibility to paint cubing in a good light, to be an ambassador for them, and to give cubing a good name.